There are mornings when a rare kind of peace comes over a man, the kind that finds you before the sun rises, before the world wakes. This morning, it wasn't the usual scramble of thoughts fighting for their turn. No, it was as if something had settled within me. A stillness, a genuine comfort. I could feel every breath, and I was content with each beat of my heart. I sat down and leaned my head on a pillow. I blinked, and I was somewhere else in an instant. There was no mental tension that any time had passed. Suddenly I sat on a bench in a hall made of white marble, trimmed in gold. It was grand and silent. The walls stretched into unseen heights, glistening with a light that seemed to have no origin, and I could feel the cool marble beneath my bare feet. I had no idea how I got there. This was no dream, but I wasn't alarmed at first, just curious. I walked through the mansion, feeling the weight of its endless halls, all wrapped in a quiet that spoke not of emptiness, but of expectation, a sense that something waited. I found myself lighting torches along the way. One by one, their flames illuminated the rooms, casting dancing shadows over the golden decorations. Each room I lit was strangely simple, untouched, and empty. Just furniture arranged like you'd expect to see in any house. The longer I wandered, the harder it was to keep that earlier calm. I tried to stay stoic, telling myself I wasn't trapped, and that someone had to know how I got here. But as I continued, my fear began to rise, creeping into my bones. Misunderstanding settled in. Questions multiplied. Was I alone? What was this place? What waited in those darkened corners just beyond the torchlight? And then, the voice. It was gentle, warm, like honey melting in warm tea. It reverberated through the marble halls, soft words that I could not understand at first. There was something familiar in the tone, though, like the way a mother might speak to a loved child. It steadied me, if only a little. I turned toward the source, and that's when I saw her. She entered the room as if she'd always been there, a figure of light and warmth, tall. I had to crane my neck to look at her. She must have been 2 heads taller than me. Her skin seemed to emit a soft golden glow, and her long blonde hair cascaded like sunlight down her back. She wore no crown, needed no halo. Her presence alone was grace incarnate, and her face held a gentle smile, not enough to show teeth, but enough to radiate compassion and understanding. It wasn't a smile of joy, or even one of reassurance. It was the smile of someone who understood everything, someone who knew the burdens I carried and the reasons behind them. I could sense that she was waiting for something, waiting for me to speak, waiting for me to ask. But the words escaped me. Her presence stripped me of identity. I didn't know how to choose the words. I felt her gaze, but more than that, I felt her mind brush against mine, like a feather, gently coaxing my feelings into some kind of order. Fear began to dissolve, replaced by a calm that was not my own, as if she was allowing me to see through her mind. In her presence, uncertainty faded away, and I felt her light cleanse me of ignorance and illusion. She cleared the noise and obstructions from my thoughts, revealing something that had been there all along, a clarity that seemed both new and ancient, like it was an obvious fact of the universe. I saw her exactly as she was, without bias, and I knew she saw me as I truly was. There was no judgment, no expectation, just understanding of the present moment. An energy swelled within me, a sense that before me was infinity, and I was always going to be here in this place. A natural conclusion. I felt the urge to speak, to ask the question that now seemed the only one that mattered. It was as if all the moments that had led me here were guiding me to this singular truth. I took a breath, and my voice sounded unexpected to my own ears as I asked, "What is this place for?" Her smile widened just slightly, her eyes filled with a kind of satisfaction, as though I had finally found the right thread in a tangled knot. "For the people you put in here," she said. I wanted to ask more, but something held me back. Deep down, I knew. It wasn't time for that yet. The words she spoke settled in my mind like seeds, and I knew it would take time for them to grow, to make sense. She stepped closer, and as she did, she raised her hand, her fingers brushing against my cheek. The warmth of her touch, it became something else, something familiar. The texture of her hand faded to something simply different. I turned to find my face against the pillow I had leaned against. In a blink, just like that, the marble halls were gone. I was back in my room, my head against the pillow. But the memory remained, her energy, her light, her understanding. They were still there. It was like an energy difference in my mind, something that pushed against the ordinary. In order for something to happen, there needs to be a difference, a potential, an ability to create change. That was what she had left with me, this sense of difference, a spark that moved me forward. The path to wisdom no longer felt like wandering through the dark, but instead, walking down a path to a familiar place. I now knew where I was headed, even if I couldn't see every step. Now, when I sit to meditate, I bring her memory forth. She has become my muse, her presence a beacon of light within my mind. I remember the stillness, the clarity she had gifted me, and I use her loving energy as a guide. Each breath draws me closer to that state, each exhale a release of the illusions I still cling to. I remember the clarity of her mind, her touch echoing across my consciousness, and the world becomes quiet, serene. I bring forth the energy of her memory, her golden glow illuminating the path. When I meditate, I listen to what her perspective has to show me as well as my own. This observable difference was her gift. It is a gentle reminder, a familiar warmth that clears the fog and allows me to see things as they truly are. Through her memory, the journey inward becomes one of purpose, no longer drifting through shadows, but moving toward a truth I have glimpsed, a truth that an enlightened mind let me know was there to be found.